This message is brought to you by House on the Rock Fellowship. We're a church that serves and cares for the Miami Valley region in Ohio. Before you continue, make sure to access the notes from our download section of our message page and have your Bible ready. Thank you for being our guest.
If you didn't get a chance to fill a backpack or want to fill another backpack or don't have any idea what's going on, these are backpacks of Christmas joy and life and love that are going to be delivered down to the Appalachian area, Cumberland Gap area. Next weekend, Sonia and Bill and their team are going to load up after church. We're going to take all these, pray over them. We're going to load them up in the trailer, and they're going to head south. And so the teams, Hope Team, Sonia and her people have been working to get all those tables set up, full of supplies. If you want to, we got how many? Anyone guess how many? Sonia, where you at, girl? How many we got left to go? You think? 15? A lot of big boys. So plenty of opportunity to stick around after church and help us crank that out. That would be awesome. Awesome. Take out your message notes. For our young people, if you want to use the junior message guide that's inside of your notes, we're encouraging our kids to sit with our adults at House on the Rock. And I think we put an example in the notes. If you ever want to find these junior message guides, they're located in front of the sound booth on that little table. Last week, a young girl brought this up to me to show me. She put my name in it. And what is Jesus teaching me? She put to be patient, which was awesome. I think Mom wrote that also. Main passage, she put down Matthew chapter 2. And what's a question for Pastor? She wanted to know, when was Jesus born? Which I thought was really cool. She put down her favorite worship song. And on the back, she actually drew a picture of 3 wise men with gifts coming to Jesus in the manger with gold and frankincense and myrrh. Which I thought, very well done. That was awesome. So for our young people, if you want to fill those out and bring it up to me after church, that would be really cool. I would love to see what you put together. You guys know that there's just some verses in the Bible that resonate a little bit more, depending on the season of life that you're in, what you're going through. They seem so much more packed full of. Like there's lots of amazing verses in the Bible, but there's just some that you can grab a hold of and take with you, meditate on, think on. They have all the pieces for life. One of the reasons verses like John 3:16 are so very, very popular. For God so loved the world that he gave his only son, whoever believed will not perish, but have everlasting life. You can sit with that verse for a long time. Just kind of hang out there in that passage. A passage like Ephesians chapter 2, verses 8 and 9, we are saved by grace through faith, not works, so that no one can boast. The idea of what does it mean to be saved by grace? Where does faith fit into it? It's not something that I do. We're going to look at a passage today that I think is one of those passages. The more I thought on it and reflect on that passage throughout the course of the week, like, wow, if you sat in this verse, you would find treasure for a long, long time. There's just so many good things that are found specifically in this verse. Yeah, there's times in life where, hey, I need to learn a little bit more about anxiety or about finances or about parenting. But boy, if I hung out in this verse, I would find treasure my whole life long. So take out a Bible, take out your copy of the notes. There's Bibles located in the seats in front of you, or if you're in the front row, you got to punch someone to grab one because there's no... Sorry, guys. It's tough. Jason's just going to punch his way through it, buddy. We're going to be in Matthew chapter 2. That's where we're going to be all of our Advent series, in Matthew chapter 2. Well, Matthew's the very first of the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, John. So if you're trying to work your way through the Bible, find the table of contents, find where the New Testament starts. You're looking at the very first book in the New Testament. We started there last week. The story of the wise men journeying, these mysterious figures that just kind of show up out of nowhere, and then before you know it, they're gone again. They're only there for about 11 verses, but they sure do captivate our minds. They captivate and fill our Christmas decorations. Last week, we talked about the star of God's grace that called them out of this distant land to chase after and to find the Christ child. And what the star was to them, we said grace is to us. If there was no star, they wouldn't have found Christ. If there was no grace, there is no grace, I would not have known Christ. I would not have known Christ. So, Matthew chapter 2, I want to read this passage for us together. Matthew chapter 2, I'm going to read the first 11 verses. And we're going to see in one particular verse 3 gifts that the wise men bring to us this morning. 3 gifts that they bring to us. Matthew chapter 2, I'm going to start reading verses 1 and I'll read through verse 11. Follow along. After Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea, so this is a different scene. This is not the shepherd scene, the angel scene. This is not the manger scene. This is not no room in the inn scene. This is a different moment, a different time, maybe 3, 4, or 5, 6 months after that moment, okay? After Jesus was born in Bethlehem in Judea, in the days of Herod the king, behold, wise men from the east came to Jerusalem saying, "Where is he who's been born King of the Jews? We saw his star when it arose. We've come to worship him." When Herod the king heard this, he was troubled, all of Jerusalem with him. Assembling all the chief priests, scribes, the people inquired of where the Christ was to be born. They told him, "In Bethlehem, in Judea, for so it's written by the prophet. And you, O Bethlehem, in the land of Judea, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah. For from you shall come a ruler who shall shepherd my people Israel." Then Herod summoned the wise men secretly and ascertained from them what time the star had appeared. And he sent them to Bethlehem, saying, "Go, search diligently for the child, and when you have found him, bring me word, that I too may come and worship him." After listening to the king, they went on their way. Behold, the star that they had seen when it arose went before them. It came before and rested over the place where the child was. When they saw the star, they rejoiced exceedingly with great joy. And going into the house, they saw the child with Mary, his mother. They fell down and worshipped him. Then, opening their treasures, they offered him gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And being warned in a dream not to return to Herod, they departed to their own country another way. Next week, we're going to talk about this Herod figure. The heart of Herod, which can grow in all of us. Any of us. We are just as guilty as Herod. We don't want to be dethroned. We don't want to be replaced. And we resist the message of Christ. We'll talk about that next week. After that, the Sunday before Christmas, we'll unpack what these wise men did, this worship. It says they bowed down and they brought gifts of gold and frankincense and myrrh. And prayerfully, 4 weeks into, we'll be able to ask ourselves this question: is our worship fit for the King? Do we come to Christ? Do we come on Sunday mornings? Do we come to our communities? Do we come before Christ in a posture that's appropriate for who he is? Or is it an afterthought? Is it a lesser thought? Are there other things that we worship far more and give far greater treasure? But today, we're just going to look at verse 2. Let's just look at verse 2 and find 3 gifts. Let me read it for you. This is Matthew chapter 2, verse 2. This is what the wise men bring to us this morning. Matthew chapter 2, verse 2. "Where is he who has been born King of the Jews? We saw his star when it arose and have come to worship him." Spend some time in that verse this morning. Where is he who's been born King of the Jews? We saw his star when it arose. We've come to worship him. One of the first gifts that the wise men give us is this truth. They tell us why we're here. The wise men tell us why we're here. They say, we have come to worship. We have come to worship. I was getting together with some pastors this last week. Well, we kind of read books and get together and talk about the books. I know, it's a very pastorly thing to do. And this last week, we're going to get together and talk about Shakespeare. Y'all be reading some Shakespeare, right? Yeah, it's good stuff. Yeah, that's right. Sonnets, the plays. And one of the things that we were discussing as we were unpacking some of the sonnets was, how is it 400 years later in school, you still got to read Shakespeare? Theater departments in school, still doing Shakespeare. What is it that 400 years later lead us to still think about, read, talk about, quote, Shakespeare? How many of you seen The Lion King? Guess what? They stole it all from Shakespeare. It's Hamlet. just ruin The Lion King. There's this time back in the 90s where they were ripping Shakespeare off all the time. 10 Things I Hate About You, She's the Man, all Shakespeare stuff. What is it about Shakespeare? Shakespeare had this capacity of grabbing a hold of the human condition and asking us questions and talking about things we all felt. What is love? What does it mean to be betrayed? What is grief? To be or not to be? What is the meaning of life? Why are we here? How many of you have ever wrestled with that question? Why am I here? What am I supposed to be about? What's the purpose of this mess that I keep finding myself in? Especially if you find yourself in some of those transition points. Maybe you're going from teenager into adulthood. Maybe you're looking at a new career path. Maybe you're thinking about getting married. Maybe you're thinking about adding kids. You start wrestling with that question. Why am I here? What's the purpose for any of this? Well, the wise men give us a gift today. You want to know why you're here? We've come to worship. We were created to worship. That's what we do. It's our native language. It's encoded into our very DNA. Everybody, every human worships all the time. I did not say every human goes to church on Sunday morning and worships Jesus all the time. Notice I did not say that. What did I say? Every human being worships. Every human ascribes worth to something else. Specifically, the word worship means this. In this context, it means to bow down and kiss. How many of you have said that before? How many of you have done that? You've bowed down to something. You've ascribed worth to something. These are men, and maybe some women came along in the trip too, who understood what it meant to recognize a deity, a God king, and say, he's worthy of my attention. Persians believed that their king was a God incarnate. That's not unique to the Christian faith. If you learned anything about Egypt, Pharaoh, it was taught that the Pharaoh, he was God incarnate himself. And so these guys make this journey because they believe, they saw in the stars, hey, we've read the heavenly messengers, and the heavenly messengers said that a new divine God king has been born in Judea, and we have come to worship. It's the right thing to do. We have come to bow down before him and recognize his worth. We are created to worship. Sometimes we do it at a sports arena. Sometimes we do it on our Instagram feeds. Sometimes we do it when we're watching a TV show and we idolize a certain celebrity, or we wear someone else's jersey. That's kind of a weird thing, put someone else's name on your back. I'm just busting on you. You know I love you. But we are wired to recognize worth and to reflect that and to gather other people to the worship of something. But guys, it goes to the very beginning of the story. In Genesis chapter 1, when God says, let us make man, he doesn't say, let us make man. He says, let us make man in our image. Meaning, man's purpose is going to be funneling praise back to God. That's his purpose. Amongst all of creation, of all the things that we've made, God said, beyond the sun, the moon, and the stars, beyond all the wonders that are running all over this thing called earth, man, woman alone are to be funnels and reflectors of our praise. I mean, that's got Shakespeare written all over it, right? I mean, Romeo looks at Juliet and says, she is the sun and I am the moon. Shakespeare's quoting some Bible right there. God, in all of his glory, is like the sun, and we are like the moon, and it is our purpose to reflect praise back to him. That's why you're here. If you're struggling with your purpose, if you're struggling with what you're supposed to be doing, come back to that very, very central idea. We have come to worship him. That's why we're here. far more than an attitude. This isn't, excuse me, three guys who walked into Mary and started singing We Three Kings of Orient are. We three kings. No. They came before recognizing that the child in front of them was something divine. And it was right for them to bow down before him, to kiss the hem of his garment, to kiss his forehead, to prostrate themselves. What does that mean for us? Well, if I'm going to learn anything from the gift of this truth, I have to start wrestling with the reality. Is my life oriented towards worship of God? Is my life, we three kings of Orient are, maybe we can run with that word a little bit. Do I orient my life to worship God, to worship Jesus? The men said, hey, we can't do it in Persia. We can't do it where we are right here. We need to make the trip. We need to make the journey. This might take us 3-4 months. This might cost us a lot. We might have to sacrifice. We might have to forego doing this one thing so that we can do something else. But we need to orient. We need to reposition ourselves so that we can worship the new king. Do you do that? Do you let the priority of worship make you uncomfortable? Do you let the priority of worship humble you and break you? Do you choose this thing over that thing? How is it apparent to others that you orient your life like the wise men did to make the worship of the child a priority? How is it clear to others that he has more value? Or if we watched your day, if you watched my day, please include me in this. Would you be able to conclude that to Jesus, for Pastor Paul, Jesus is the most important thing? How many of you have a Christmas tree that's up? How many of you have more than one Christmas tree up?
I do.
I believe it. Jack, you got a few up. Pancakes, some of you got more. Yeah. How many of you got up there? Have you get two? Yeah. Jazz, you got a couple up? Yeah. All right, it's okay. It's okay. It's perfectly fine. Did you put it up last week? We started ours last week. Yeah.
You did?
I did. That's a lie. She did. I watched. And no one's surprised, right? Like, believe me, if there's a tree going up, Elise probably did it, and Paul didn't have anything to do with it. But if you look at my wife's tree, the Christmas tree, it's elegant. It's beautiful. It is decades of memory and family and joy. And maybe like your Christmas tree, some of our ornaments are more valuable than others. You guys, and you know the ornaments I'm talking about? The ones that are really worth something of value, maybe it's financial value or maybe it's relational value. The ones that get hung up front so that everyone can see, right? Yeah, those. But there's other ones, there's other bulbs that you just kind of been lugging around for 40 or 50 years that you stick up in there just because you need some filler here or there. But no one thinks that every single bulb is worth the same, right? No one thinks that. My sons, we remind them of this. Every single pre-Christmas, they get the exact same speech. You guys are going to bring down the tub with the ornaments in it. If you drop it, we will sell you to somebody else. That's right. These bulbs are worth more than you are. And we joke about that, but not really. In that, there's a lot of value ascribed to some of these ornaments and these bulbs. Things that have been passed down to Elise generation upon generation that were handmade by a great-grandmother, that you just can't go to the store and swap out for something else. Oh yeah, we broke your great-grandmother's bulb. Here you go, we got another one at Walmart. No, it's not happening. It's not happening. There's just more value there. There's more worth there. It is my responsibility, based on what the wise men have told me, I need to orient every aspect of my life to recognizing his worth more than anything else. He alone is worthy of praise. 10 Commandments, okay? 10 Commandments. Cookies on the bottom shelf. You shall have no other God but me. Yeah. The wise men teach me I need to orient. But I also have a responsibility to help others reorient their worship. That's what a good human does. A good human helps the rest of creation stay focused on what matters most, the declaration of who God is. This is why when the wise men show up, they're walking into Jerusalem. Jerusalem knows about worship. Jerusalem's fine worshiping. Herod's all about worshiping himself, and Herod wants everyone else to worship him. The emperor in Rome, he's big on worship. It's not that worship is new, it's what's being worshiped that matters. And so, hey, when the wise men show up, hey, we're here to worship the new king. They're calling Jerusalem to a reorientation of worship. Maybe someone's done that in your life. Has someone ever come up and said, hey, it seems like this is getting a lot of your attention. Is that right?
Yeah.
I love that you listen. Hey, I see that this thing over here is getting a lot of your focus. I see that you spend a lot here and go here a lot and do this a lot. I see that you really bow down before these things, before that team, before that hobby. Is that the way you should be spending? Maybe someone's come up and said that to you. Maybe you need to say that to a loved one. If worship is our purpose, then a part of that is helping reorient the worship of others. Just like the wise men when they showed up, he says, hey, parents, if you're going to be a good parent, this is what you're doing all the time. You're doing all the time. You're helping your kids worship well. Worship rightly. One of the reasons I'm excited to have our kids in our worship gatherings, so they can watch mom worship, watch dad worship. There's nothing wrong with a little parental peer pressure too. Because they are keying off of you, mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, aunt, uncle. They're learning from you what is worthy of their attention, what is worthy of their focus, what is worthy to bow down to. Yeah. Are you reorienting, helping your children reorient? Worship. I'm doing the best I can. I know, I'm sorry. I'll try harder. Why are we here? To worship. They give us another gift, okay? Let's get back to that verse, Matthew chapter 2. Whereas he who has been born King of the Jews, we saw his star, we've come to worship him. His star, referring to the star of the king. We recognize from the celestial messaging that a new king has come. A new king has been born. They remind us, the wise men remind us, Jesus is king. Jesus is king. That can get lost in the Christmas messaging. That can get really lost in the Christmas story. Why? Because in the manger, he's just such a cute little baby. It's a cute baby Jesus. And you have little decorations of baby Jesus, and he's adorable, and he's just so wonderful, and it's so easy to forget and lose sight of the fact that what? He's king. This is the king in the manger. And so there's some words here in this passage that can really help us. What is king? Because let's be honest, we don't do king. We're Americans, right? Like the whole reason we're Americans is why? We don't do kings. We'll even write musicals about how we don't do kings and then make fun of the kings in the musicals because we don't do kings. In fact, we will pride ourselves in making sure that those who are in authority are only there because we said they can be there. And if they screw up, we'll take care of it. We don't do kings. Maybe we need to recalibrate and understand what is a king. Because I would suggest if you resist a king, you don't know how to follow Jesus. If you have a problem with a king, you cannot follow Jesus. Listen to this passage. Let's keep going. We saw his star, one born King of the Jews. When Herod the king, sounds like there's going to be a problem, heard this, he was troubled, all of Jerusalem with him. Assembling all the chief priests and scribes of the people, he inquired of them where the Christ was to be born. They told him, in Bethlehem of Judea, for so it's written by the prophet. You, O Bethlehem in the land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah, for from you shall come a ruler who will shepherd my people Right there's some words that can kind of help us understand king, okay? First, he says this, where the Christ was to be born. Christ is not Jesus' last name. Christ is the recognition of title. Christ means anointed. In the Old Testament, 3 figures were anointed, okay? A prophet could be anointed. The high priest would be anointed. The king was anointed. Anointing was the recognition of God's seal upon that individual, that God had sent this person to do something. Be a prophet, could be a high priest, could be a king. But when we're talking about king, what do we mean? Is there something else that would be helpful? Let's look at this passage in verse 5 and 6, where the prophet Micah is being referenced. You, Bethlehem, and the land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah. For from you shall come a ruler who will shepherd my people. What is a king? The king is the anointed ruler who shepherds God's people. The king is the anointed ruler that shepherds God's people. Let's look to that passage in Micah that's referenced here. If you have your Bible, this one's going to be a little tricky, okay? Because Micah is one of the minor prophets. Doesn't mean he wrote small stuff. It just means the size of his book. So if you find Micah, I want to read to you the rest of that passage in Micah chapter 5. This might be one of those where you go to the table of contents first because Micah's pretty small. It's not like Isaiah or Jeremiah. So he's one of the minor prophets. You got the major prophets, size-wise, and the minor prophets. You got Jonah, Micah, Nahum, Habakkuk, Zephaniah, Haggai, Zechariah, Malachi. Okay. We could do a whole Books of the Bible song. How many of you learned a Book of the Bible song when you were growing up? Some of you went to Sunday school? Some of you, yeah? Maybe Adam, you come and lead us in worship. No, Adam? Okay. In Micah chapter 5, if you can't get there, you're struggling to find it, it's okay. It's okay. We're going to go to some bigger books in a little bit. You might want to write it down on your message notes. This is a big Christmas passage. In Micah chapter 5, this is where that prophecy comes from. Okay? Micah chapter 5, I'm going to read verses 2 through 4 at the beginning of 5. Micah chapter 5, verses 2 through 5. Ready? Listen. See if it helps us understand what this God King is going to be about. But you, Bethlehem, Ephrathah, who are too little to be among the clans of Judah, from you shall come forth for me. Okay. So this king's coming from who? This king's coming from God. It's God's king. One who is to be ruler in Israel, whose coming forth is from of old, from ancient days. Therefore, he shall give them up until the time when she who is in labor has given birth. Then the rest of his brothers shall return to the people of Israel. And he shall stand and shepherd his flock in the strength of the Lord. There's something about a good king and being a good shepherd. In the majesty and the name of the Lord his God. And they shall dwell secure, for now he shall be great to the ends of the earth. He shall be their peace. Okay, so if I'm thinking about a king and what the king is supposed to be, this anointed ruler who shepherds, that means he's going to provide security, he's going to provide peace. Then when the people stay close to the king, they experience his security, they experience his peace. This is God's king, this is God's shepherd. This is the one who's coming. This is the opposite of what Herod was. This is the opposite of what the emperor in Rome was. Let's look at a couple other passages. Okay, Ezekiel, much easier to find, okay? So if you take your Bible and you open it almost directly to the middle, you'll find Isaiah, okay? Isaiah, and if you keep going to the right a little bit, you have Isaiah, Jeremiah, Lamentations, Ezekiel. There's a lot of real estate with Ezekiel, okay? Ezekiel chapter 34. Ezekiel chapter 34. Again, start right in the middle. Unless you have like a study Bible that has a lot of extra stuff in the back, then the middle might not be helpful, but you still might get pretty close. Isaiah, Jeremiah, Lamentations, Ezekiel. It's a great name. Another one of these passages that lets us know what the good king is going to be about. Ezekiel chapter 34. I'm going to start reading in verse 20 down to 24. Ezekiel 34, verses 20 through 24. Giving it a go? Kayla, good? All right. Jennifer, fine? You good? Danielle got it? All right, girl. There's a lot of pages in that one. Was that the one Rose gave you? Man, she gave you. There's a lot there. That's a big book. Ezekiel 34, 20 to 24. Ready? Therefore, thus says the Lord God to them, behold, I myself will judge between fat sheep and lean sheep. Because you push with side and shoulder and thrusted all the weak with your horns till you've scattered them abroad. Okay. What had happened was the current leadership in Israel was subjecting the poor to terrible economic situations they were taking advantage of. And so God says, I'm going to take care of this. I'm going to take care of this. I'm sick of you making it difficult for others. I will rescue my flock. They shall no longer be prey. I will judge between sheep and sheep. I will set up over them one shepherd, my servant David, and he shall feed them, and be their shepherd. Okay. When Ezekiel writes this, David's been dead for hundreds of years. Like, David's gone. Why the David reference? How is that helpful? David was given a specific promise by God. From David, from your line, there will always be a king to sit on an eternal throne. And so when God says this to the bad leadership, the bad shepherds of Israel, says, hey, I will send my king, a David-like king, a good shepherding king, because that king will feed my sheep. So when we think about king, he's securing, he's bringing peace, he's feeding. Let's look at a couple other passages. These are in Isaiah. Again, Isaiah, if you open your book right to the middle, you probably get pretty close to Isaiah. Psalms, Proverbs, you get to Isaiah. Isaiah chapter 40. Isaiah chapter 40, we're going to look at two passages in Isaiah. A lot of times when we study the word together, I'll keep us all just in one verse. It's helpful for you just from a study perspective. But here's one of those areas where, even in our passage, they went to the Bible to find what they were looking for. So let's do that. Okay, Isaiah chapter 40. I'm going to start reading in verse 9, 10, and 11. Isaiah 40, verses 9, 10, and 11. So the book Isaiah, big number 40, and then a little 9 and a little 11. Don't give up. Don't give up. I love hearing the pages turn. Isaiah 40, verses 9, 10, and 11. Go up on a high mountain, O Zion, herald of good news. Hey, good news. What's another word for good news? There you go. Yeah. Go up on the high mountain, herald of gospel. Lift up your voice with strength, O Jerusalem, herald of good news. Lift it up. Fear not. Say to the cities of Judah, behold your God. Behold, the Lord God comes with might, and his arm rules for him. Behold, his reward is with him, and his recompense before him. He will tend his flock like a shepherd. He will gather the lambs in his arms. He will carry them in his bosom, gently lead those that are with young. Yeah, what does a shepherd do? What does a good king do? He cares. He nurtures. He protects. He puts his big arms around them. He keeps the wolves at bay. There's a passage, 2 Samuel chapter 5. We've had these references about David. These references about David. Here's another one, 2 Samuel chapter 5. Here's a lot of verses. Yeah, it's good stuff. 2 Samuel chapter 5, I'm going to read verse 2. 2 Samuel chapter 5, verse 2. This is towards the beginning of the book. Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers. Then you get into the historical books. 1 Samuel, 2 Samuel. Okay, 1 Samuel, 2 Samuel. Saul, the king, is dead and gone, and now there's a bit of a power struggle. Who's going to be king? A couple guys like, hey, I want to give it a shot. Let's see if I can do this king thing. David's already been anointed king. David's already been selected as king. But in the midst of this political power struggle, the nation gathers around and says this to David in 2 Samuel chapter 5. Verse 2, in times past, when Saul was king over us, it was you who led out and brought us in. It was you who led us out. What's he talking about? He's talking about the king's responsibility to lead the army out, that the king leads us into battle. The good king goes first. Well, you can think back to exchanges between Saul and David. Goliath shows up on the scene. Saul's up in his tent, quaking like a tree. David shows up and says, hey, I'll take care of it. I'll go face this giant. I'll go face this enemy. I'll go ahead for the people. Saul, you stay back where you are. David had a reputation. Even when Saul hung back, even though that Saul was the king, David went ahead to face the enemy. Okay, this is what it means to be the good king. What do we see Jesus doing on the cross? Facing the enemy, battling sin, facing death, going ahead of us so that we don't have to. Crown on his head, high and lifted up. So the prophet Isaiah, for to us a child is born, a son is given. Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. At the end of his government, there will be no end. This is what Micah is talking about. This is what the whole Old Testament is talking about. This is what they were searching for when these wise men show up. We should not be surprised when Jesus steps onto the scene. What's his job description? He's the king. God's king. The God King. To secure peace. To protect, to care, to face the dragons, to battle the chaos. Matthew, very concerned that his people read this gospel and understand that Jesus is king. He's king. He starts the gospel out with this phrase, the book of the genealogy of Jesus Christ, that means the anointed one, the son of David in the line of the king, the son of Abraham, the Jewish king. He's the king. Have we lost sight of that? Are we just really content to keep Jesus as a cute little accoutrement that goes inside the creche and is pretty and delightful and maybe we got some lights around him? Or have we forgotten the fact that he's king? King. Worthy of worship and allegiance. That's what baptism is. That's what your baptism is. Your baptism is your allegiance to the king. Entering into his story, being brought through sin and death. You're holding up the flag. You're turning from kingdoms of sin and death and Satan and saying, I'm following King Jesus. He's king. He's king. Where is he born King of the Jews? We have come to worship him. The wise men give us 3 gifts. First, they tell us why we're here. We're here to worship. We're going to talk about that more in a couple weeks. 2, they remind us Jesus is king. King. We should respond appropriately. Thirdly, they give us a really good question. I love good questions. I love good questions. The beginning of the Bible, it's got some great questions in it. Adam and Eve go off and do their thing. God asks them a good question. Hey, guys, where are you? Where are you? That's a good question. That's a good question. He knows. Did they know? Did they know the choice that they had made? Did they understand the consequences that were coming with it? Where are you? You ever been asked that question before? You ever had a loving brother, sister in the Lord, mother, father in the Lord come and say, hey, where are you? Where's your head right now? What are you thinking? What are you doing? Where are you? Where are you right now? These choices that you're making, these things that you're saying, these things that you're doing, where are you? That's a good question. God comes up to Cain, asks him a really good question. Where's your brother? That's a good question. Where's your brother? What did you do? God knows. What did you do? Wise men give us a really good question. Where's the king? Where's the king? You want to know why that's a good question? Because there are some places where he's not and you don't belong. They show up to the palace. Where's the king? He's not in the palace. You know what's going on in the palace? There's a lot of worship going on in the palace. It's just not God worship. It's not Christ worship. It's not Christ-centered worship. It's self-worship. It's false worship. It's full of false gods and false entities and false values. It's far from anything removed that has anything to do with Jesus. You're not going to find Jesus there. That's right. False worship. Stop the mean, bald man, Rose. You know what else is at the palace? Secrecy. You want to know how you're in the wrong place and Jesus isn't there? It's full of secrets. Herod brings up the wise men. Hey, can we talk in secret? I don't want word to get out. How do you know you're in the wrong place? Secrecy. You're keeping secrets from loved ones. You're keeping secrets from family members. You're keeping secrets that distance you and keep you apart from others. Secrets. Yeah. Lies. Herod says to the wise men, you go find him and you come back and get me because I want to worship him too. That's a lie. Herod doesn't want to worship. Herod wants to kill that baby. Herod's going to kill that baby. You're in the wrong place. Yeah. Where are you? Where's the king? Where's the king without Christ? Maybe you were reading Shakespeare in school and you probably had to read Homer's Odyssey also. In Homer's Odyssey, he's trying to get home, and one of the islands he comes across is the island of the lotus eaters. The problem with the island of the lotus eaters is when you eat the fruit of the lotus, you don't want to go home. You don't want to get where you belong. You want to stay there. You want to stay in that place. And the longer you stay, the more numb you become. That's what sin does. That's what sin does. The longer I stay in that place, the longer I stay apart from Christ, the more numb I become. And I don't want to go home. Odysseus has to go get his crewmen and literally drag them off the island and drag them back onto the ship and tie them down because all they want to do is stay there and dine and wine in luxury and comfort and delicacy. They become numb. That's what sin does. These spaces where we hide and hang out secretly and lie to each other and lie to ourselves. So the wise men ask us the question, where's Jesus in all of this? Where's Jesus in all of this? The way you're acting, what you're choosing, and what you're doing. Where's Jesus in all of this? I used to remind my sons all the time if we're going to go out into a big public space, maybe it was a zoo, maybe it was a park. Hey, if you can't see me, what? You're in the wrong place. If you can't see me, you're in the wrong place. The responsibility for them to constantly orienting themselves, all right, where's dad? Where's dad? Where's dad? Okay, if I can see dad, dad can see me, we're okay. Where's dad? Where's dad? I was teaching a parenting class on Wednesday night, and we just finished up teaching, and parents were kind of transitioning, and kids were running all over the place. Good time, fun times. And I was walking into my office, and right inside the door on the shelf, I have one of those staple easy buttons from Staples. You know the ones I'm talking about? You push it. That was easy. That was easy. Kids love to come in. They love to push the button. That was easy. I'll go in after church, and I'll push that button. That was easy. I'm setting my stuff down, and all of a sudden I hear these little feet. And I hear the button. That was easy. And I turn around, and it was one of the kids. I'm like, hey, what's up? Like, hey. I'm like, where's dad at? It's like, right there. I'm like, no, he's not. Yep, dad's right there. Where's dad at? Right there. No, he's not. Kid thought for sure dad was right behind him. No, if you can't see dad, you're in the wrong place. Fortunately, Levi's legs are just faster than yours, Nathaniel. That's all right. I know. Levi was just excited. Nathaniel was on his way. He knew exactly where his kid was. But case in point, child thought he was in the right place. It's real easy for us to get distracted and get chasing after. If you can't see Jesus, then you're in the wrong place. Where you are right now, the choices that you're making, the things that you're doing. The wise men would say to you, where's Jesus? Where's the king? How do we apply this? How do we live in this verse a little bit more? A couple things that might be helpful, 3 things that might be helpful for you, okay? As we think of living in this passage, of holding on to these gifts, okay? First one is this, okay? First one is this, searching Scripture. Reading the Bible always makes things better. More Bible makes things better. They didn't know where the king was. They didn't know where Jesus was. Even the lost people didn't know. They searched the Bible. They found the answer. Make Scripture a bigger habit of your life. Be in the habit of bringing a Bible to church. Be in the habit of opening the Bible in life groups and communities and study groups. We're making some big decisions to help make that easier in the year to come. Prayerfully in a couple of weeks, we'll be able to roll some of those resources out to you. Already making decisions on what the Bible plan we're going to follow come January, how we're going to read the Bible more. But if you're finding yourself without purpose, without direction, feel like you've kind of lost sight of things, read the Bible. Read more Bible. Get back into the Bible. Read the Bible. It's hard. Yes, some parts are more harder than others. So let's sit down, we can work through it together. But please, by all means, more Bible makes things better. More Bible makes things better. Maybe that's something that could help you this morning. If you've never read it, don't have one, come see me. We'll hook you up. Second thing, do you know the king? Do you know who you're looking for? Have you been to the baptismal waters? Have you declared your allegiance? Have you forgotten that he's king? Have you forgotten your baptism? Have you forgotten that decision? Does his question, do their questions echo in your spirit this morning? Where's the king? Where's the king? Thirdly, purpose. Have you forgotten your purpose? You're made to worship, not to be worshiped. Quit with all the filters on Instagram. That's not helping you. You are not made to be worshiped. You are made to reflect worship. You are made to orient other people's attention onto Jesus, not yourself. Not yourself. Parents, do your kids a favor. Please come to the realization they do not exist to make you feel better about yourself. It's not their job to validate your existence. It is your responsibility to usher them into a new kingdom. That's your responsibility. Have you lost sight of your purpose? Today was the very first public mass in Notre Dame in Paris. After 5 years of the reconstruction of Notre Dame, over $1 billion collected globally to bring this massive structure back up to par excellence. Maybe you have images of it in your mind. Maybe you've seen it in the news. But I had to slow down a little bit, and I had a little bit of a moment on Friday when the news reporter was bringing the story featuring Notre Dame, because he made this statement. It's the kind of statement where my wife has to stop my arm from punching the TV, okay? He made this statement. Beyond its religious significance, this is an important landmark for humanity. I'm like, there's nothing beyond the religious significance. There's nothing more significant. It's a church. That's what it is. It's not a postcard. It's not a movie set. It's an 800-year-old Gothic cathedral that was designed to spire worship heavenward. That's why it's designed the way that it is. With those giant flying buttresses and those beautiful glass windows and the vaulted ceilings. It's designed so that you step out of the chaos and death of your meager existence and you're immediately catapulted into this space where it feels like heaven and earth meet. That's what it's for. That's why it's there. That's what it's built for. It's not a landmark. It's to be the place where heaven and earth meet. Sadly, It's lost that. It lost that. Maybe it'll come back. I don't know. From what we can tell about the religious climate in France and Europe, probably not. Probably not. But you know what? That's okay. Because whatever someone intended Notre Dame to be, God created you for. You are his cathedrals. You are the place where heaven and earth meet. And maybe you didn't know that. And maybe you've been trying to become something that you're not. But you were created with this precious, precious purpose of helping funnel people's attention onto Jesus. To keep your attention on Jesus. So start asking yourself again, where's the King? Where's the King? Thank you for sharing your time with us, and we'd love for the journey to continue. If you're a guest, would you consider reaching out to us? We would love to come alongside and encourage you in any way that we can. If you're someone who's joined us today and you are desperately reaching to find hope wherever you can, again, Jesus came that we would find hope. You can find hope today. If you want to send us a short note, a member of our Hope team would reach out quickly, promptly, to come alongside and see what we can do to encourage you in whatever storm you might find yourself in. That's why Jesus came, and that's why we're here. Jesus said there's two ways to live your life, and a wise man, a wise woman, builds their life on Jesus' instructions. God bless.